Hi, I'm Dr. David J. Pesek, the founding president of the International Institute of Iridology. What I'd like to do is introduce you to this concept of holistic iridology, which is uniquely different. It's leading edge. So in the past, for the last 3,000 years, iridology has been practiced from a physical standpoint, where we could look at the liver, the kidney, the spleen, the lungs, and so forth. But with holistic iridology, we're actually looking at the thought and emotions that we've inherited genetically from our ancestors. This is a phenomenal system that I feel very blessed to bring forth to you and to share this information with you in this lecture that you're about to watch. It's unique, it's powerful, and I would like you to learn how to do this. And I'm the one to teach you how to become a holistic iridologist and then earn your diplomate of holistic iridology, where then you can help other people effectuate change in their lives. And what more gratifying thing there is to help another human being advance in their wellness, both physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And that's the power of holistic iridology. We inherit from our ancestors not just the shape of our nose and the color of our eyes and our cheekbones and our jawline, or how tall we are or how short we are. We inherit thought and emotional patterns that are very powerful, that get transmitted genetically to the next generation. And our eyes show us what these patterns are. And holistic iridology helps us to reveal what those patterns are and then help other people to make these changes. So enjoy the lecture. And please feel free to give me a call. Visit the website, www.holistikiridology.com, and I'm here to be of service to you. Thank you, and God bless. Okay, well, thank you for being here. I really appreciate this. And what I'd like to share with you during this presentation is information about holistic iridology. It's very different than other systems of iridology in that traditional iridology deals with just physical aspects of a person's health and wellness. And the science is at least 3,000 years old. And it's all been along the physical aspects. But in the last 25, 30 years, I've been blessed and inspired to bring about an evolution, an advancement in the science and practice of iridology. And I call it holistic iridology because it truly is a holistic system of analyzing a person or assessing a person, not diagnosing an individual, but assessing levels of health and wellness. And when I say holistic, what I mean by that truly is that it is spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical aspects to our human existence. Because we really are, and you'll hear me say this a few times, spiritual beings having a human experience. And the eyes show us this information in all that we've inherited from our parents and our grandparents and our great-grandparents. And this system of iridology is so powerful because we can look into someone's eyes, and you've heard the expression, the eyes are the windows of the soul. And they really are. Because we have in our eyes information that is hereditary, information of our soul's journey in this lifetime. So I'm very excited to share all of this with you as an overview, to show you that what we learn and what I teach in level 1, level 2, some of level 3 in the courses that I offer. I'm the founding president of the International Institute of Iridology, which is the educational school for iridology internationally. And we have nearly 50 countries represented as students and graduates, practitioners of holistic iridology around the world. 50 countries, nearly 50 countries at this time. So this is an introduction to this leading edge system. True healing begins on the spiritual level first, then into the mental and emotional levels, and finally into the physical body. This is the true nature of the healing process. Now, when we work with somebody on a physical level, it's important because if someone's digestion is off, if their elimination is slow and congested, they need help, and they really need to get those physical symptoms taken care of. But ultimately, what comes first is an imbalance with thoughts and emotions. If we have, if you have, if I have physical symptoms of dis-ease, hyphenated, dis-ease, there's an imbalance that preceded it with thought and emotion. It's not a theory. That's really how it is. We're all one people. All of us. We all come from the same divine creative source of all. I love this picture with the children of different nations, of different continents, of different genetic backgrounds, all holding Mother Earth in joy and laughter and love. Speaking of that word love, what's the greatest healing power that there is? What would you think? It's love, isn't it? It really is. And it starts with love of self. And I don't mean that that's an egocentric kind of thing. It's enough to care enough about yourself for your own wellness, your own sense of well-being, to work on yourself, to help yourself to be healthy. Self-love is positive. Egocentrism isn't so positive, but loving yourself and thus being able to love others, it's powerful. It is the most powerful force and energy in the universe. Now, the iris is a very unique contractile membrane. I'll show you. But this iris has different meanings, the word iris. It's a noun, and it comes from a Greek origin, and it means rainbow. That was the original meaning of iris was rainbow or a halo, like a glow around the sun. There's a beautiful rainbow there, and I was fortunate enough to take this picture from my front yard. It was after a summer afternoon rain shower with the sunlight coming from the western position in the sky. But the Greeks named the goddess of the rainbow Iris. And Iris was the messenger of the gods and the personification of the rainbow. That's the original origin. Now it's also the circular, pigmented, contractile membrane surrounding the pupil of the eye, the human iris. Notice all the different colorations in here. The brownish, rusty colored pigments, the yellows and oranges. They all mean something about somebody's health. The rusty brown pigments tell us about the liver. The orange type pigments tell us about the pancreas. The yellowish colors tell us about the kidneys. The whitish colors, these little dots right here out in the periphery, tell us about the lymphatic system. And all of those are accumulations that happen over time. Some of the pigments develop in a person's iris when they're 4, 5, 6 years of age. And they're programmed in there genetically. This darker edge out here is the skin area, and then there's kind of a purplish haze on the edge of the iris in the sclera. It tells me that the person has low oxygenation of their tissues. Then there's another kind of iris. How about the flower? Beautiful flowers, iris flowers. Any of a large group of plants of the genus Iris having sword-like shaped leaves and flowers of widely varying color. So we have Iris, the goddess of the rainbow. We have iris in our eye, and we have iris flowers. So what are we actually talking about in the physical sense is this area right here. You can see in this cross-sectional view the word iris right here, and it points to this little thin membrane right there. There, and then here's a pupil, the opening, and then down here is more tissue of an iris. It's right there. That's all it is. Just that thin little contractile membrane. And it has a reflex embryologically, neurologically, of every gland and organ in the body in that thin little membrane. And here is a cross-sectional view from above. Now this is a deceased eye, but it was done shortly after a person died because the eye will dehydrate quickly. This section right here, this big structure right here, is the lens. And the lens is usually clear. But once the person dies, that becomes opaque very quickly. This thicker area down here on the bottom is the cornea. That's also clear when it's alive tissue. The cornea is a dome that protects the iris. This over here on the lateral sides is the sclera, the white of the eye. And right here, right along here, this area, it's got the number 5 on it, right through here, that is the iris itself. So you can see how thin it is compared to the cornea. And the cornea here at its thickest point is only a couple millimeters thick. So the iris is even thinner than that. Now, holistic iridology is not used for diagnosis of diseases. That's really important to emphasize that, because some people like to diagnose and use that word diagnose when they're using iris analysis. But I don't like that. I think that holistic iridology is a system that is used as an effective way of assessing people for conditions and levels of health. State it positively. Look at levels of wellness and health and not sickness and disease. How many of you have gone to a doctor of some kind and they'll say, oh, and they'll give you a label. Oh, you have XYZ type of diagnosis, and that's a disease or a disease of some kind of condition for insurance purposes. And giving people labels or telling people that, well, if you have this, you're going to have it the rest of your life. You better learn to live with it because there's no cure. Those kinds of things. It's very negative. So with holistic iridology, we use it as a system of assessing conditions and levels of health in a person. And maybe there's some areas that aren't as healthy as others. But in stating it in a negative way, it sabotages the healing process. So we say no diagnosis. Now, iridology, as I said, goes back about 3,000 years in ancient history to an area in Mesopotamia or Central Asia. But when we bring it forward in the latter part of the 19th century, the 1800s, iridology was practiced by medical doctors, MD, DO, osteopathic medical doctors, naturopathic medical doctors, also chiropractic doctors, homeopathic doctors were using widely, they were using iridology or iris analysis, but from a physical standpoint. Henry Lindlar was one of those champions of iridology back in the 1890s, 1900, 1910, 1920s. And he wrote this, and it says, the regular school of medicine, which means allopathic, as a body, as a whole, has ignored and will ignore this science of iridology because it discloses the fallacy of their favorite theories and practices, and because it reveals unmistakably the direful results of chronic drug poisoning and ill-advised operations. Henry Lindlar, 1919. Almost 100 years ago. Almost 100 years ago. Dr. Lindlar was speaking out about conventional, at the time, conventional allopathic medical practices, ignoring the benefits of iris analysis and seeing that it discloses the fallacy of their favorite theories. That gentleman is the late Dr. Bernard Jensen. Dr. Jensen was a mentor of mine. I was blessed to have him in my life for a number of years, and he put me under his wing and he said, David, one day you're going to be an iridologist. And I said, I am? I just met you. This is my first seminar. And I sat in the front row, center, and I went up to him at the first break and I said, it's an honor to meet you. I'm really excited about being here to learn this science. And he looked at my little name badge and he said, David, why, one day you're going to be I was a little hand like that. One day you're going to be an iridologist. And son, I'm going to show you how. Why, David, you could make a living at this. What a prophetic day that was, an experience with my first encounter with the late Dr. Bernard Jensen. Because I was his pet student for 7 years. What a blessing. He slept in my home. I was in his home. David, look over my shoulder while I'm reading ice. Look, do you see this over here? Do you see that? Now go do this and practice this and so on. Yeah. And then eventually, I earned a PhD from an accredited university in the field of iridology with Dr. Jensen as my main mentor in that. I had 3 committee members on my doctoral committee members. Holistic iridology. The iris, sclera, and pupil of the eye show the veil the soul has created through consciousness or forgetfulness that reflects the illusions which prepares the soul for attaining the reality of full enlightenment. That's a deep thought, expression, term, phrasing. But what it really means is, as I said earlier, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And the iris, sclera, and pupil give us information as to our soul's journey through this life. And when we can understand through the veils, and what are these veils? The veils are things like, I don't know how, I'm not sure, if only I was smarter, I am so angry, what's the use? All of those things are illusions. I'm not lovable, I am not loved, I'm not worthy. Those are illusions that keep us from the divine. And when I'm teaching holistic iridology and bringing this forth, I'm not talking about religion. People have created religion. I'm talking about the spiritual essence of every human being and your soul's journey through your life. And when we can understand through the reflection, through our eyes, what these illusions are, and we can overcome them, then it prepares us to be closer to the divine creative source of all, God. Again, this is not religion. It's about our connection with the divine creative source of all. Now, irises are very interesting. As I mentioned, we inherit from our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, information genetically that's beyond the shape of your nose, the color of your eyes, how tall or short you are. All of those features say, oh, doesn't she look like her mother? Gosh, he sure looks like his dad. That's only the physical. What we're looking at here is a vibration. This picture on the left of the screen is water, a vessel of water with light shining from below and a sound vibration. One tone, one note. Like you say the note of C or the note G, and it would just be Om. And that sound passing through the water vibrates it into a pattern. A beautiful symmetrical pattern. Change the note, and the pattern changes. That's frequencies. That's physics. Those are vibrations. Our irises are a compilation of all the vibrations of our consciousness. What we got from our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, it's all there in the eyes. The vibrations of joy, the vibrations of love, the vibrations of anger, resentment, fear, sadness, compassion, passion. All of those kinds of vibrations are in us genetically if they were passed down from our ancestors. And when you put it all together, it creates an iris pattern. Very powerful. This, and look at how similar it is. This right here is not an iris. That right there is iron filings, little tiny shavings of iron, steel, like an iron, and the same idea. The iron is on a metal plate, the sound is passed through the plate, and it forms a pattern. Change the sound, the tone, and the pattern shifts. Look at how similar it is to an iris. We pass the genes on from one generation to the next. Everything. There's the old movie, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It all gets passed down. Not just the baggage from mom and dad and grandparents, but the good things too. The nurturing that we received, the nurturing that your mother received from your grandmother, that loving, caring, nurturing, it resonates within you. If one of the people in the family is a tyrant emotionally, well, those things get passed on as well. So if that's in your genes, you can overcome it. Because none of this is a sentence. We have the ability to change. Scientific evidence shows that thoughts and emotions affect and alter our DNA, and our DNA affects our emotions, attitudes, and behaviors. You are capable of reprogramming the DNA code to transmute ancestral issues that are not healthy or not for your highest good. You can change. So if anyone ever says to you or has said, oh, you have XYZ condition that runs in the family, that's what you're going to have, you have to live with it, it's not true. It may run in the family genetically, but it doesn't mean you can't change it. You can rewrite the script. Are you with me on that? It's true. Yeah. You know what's so gratifying? Years ago, and I've been in the field of natural medicine, natural health care, naturopathic health care for almost 4 decades. Well, it's a long time. I've seen a thing or three over those years. And in looking at that and experiencing teaching people, it's really gratifying to me when I make a statement like that, are you aware that you can change? You do not have to be subject or victim to your genetics, that it's possible to have people say yes, really makes me feel good. Because 25, 30 years ago, people would go, oh, I don't know, I don't think so. This is what I've got, and they told me I'm going to have to live with it the rest of my life. People are becoming more and more aware, more conscious, and empowered. It's wonderful. Because good health is your choice. It's a choice. And do you take time to smell the flowers? Like this beautiful butterfly, sampling the nectar of these blossoms. Now let's look at the chart. Now, this is an introduction to holistic iridology, so I can't go into this in great detail. I do that in the seminars, especially in level 1 seminar that teaches this. But there's the pupil in the center, and then around the pupil is the gastrointestinal tract, the stomach, the small intestine, the large intestine or colon. Same thing in this eye. Pupil, gastrointestinal tract around the pupil, and then off of what we call the collarette, which is this wavy line here, this collarette that goes around and circumscribes the gastrointestinal tract. Everything outside of that are the endocrine glands, and then the structures of the body like the lung, the kidneys, the liver, the spine, and so forth. The left eye gives us information about the feminine side, and the right eye gives us information about the masculine side, because the left side of the body is feminine, and the right side of the body is masculine. So if there's emotional issues, it's going to be in the left eye. If it's thought issues and challenges with faulty thinking or positive thinking, it's more seen in the right eye. And everybody has the feminine and masculine side. Whether you're a man or a woman, it doesn't make any difference. You still have the left side feminine and the right side masculine. Now this chart is again an evolution of the process. I didn't do all the pioneering work to this chart. I fine-tuned it. But early iris charts go back, we have them that go back 130, 140 years, 150 years. Now part of what makes holistic iridology so unique is that all of the physical features in the eyes, meaning the glands and organs and systems, like in this chart here, the scale of thoughts and emotions in relationship to the endocrine glands and organs of detox and elimination. So that looking at the bottom here of unconsciousness deals with the ovaries and testes, the reproductive system. Again, this is an overview. I would teach you all of these steps in level 1 and what they mean. But this is an overview, an introduction to the depth and breadth and power of holistic iridology. Survival, the lungs, respiratory system. Apathy is the lymphatic system, the immune system. Grief and sadness with the pancreas. You know anyone that has blood sugar challenges? Hyperglycemia, diabetes, hypoglycemia, blood sugar challenges. There's significant genetic grief and sadness issues within those people that need to be dealt with. Now, if we can find a way to understand somebody, to help them understand that for them to know that they have grief and sadness issues, to see where they've come from genetically, and to empower them to change, then you can help them with their blood sugar challenges far more effectively and long-term than just some kind of a drug to work on blood sugar levels, to get to cause. That's the idea. Get to cause. So now we'll take a look at the constitution of a person. And some people say, what does that mean, constitution? I says, your genetic strengths. What did you get from your parents and your grandparents? Constitutionally, do you have a strong constitution? Or do you have a lot of resistance to illness and disease and fatigue? Do you have strong stamina? So on. Okay, so an iris that has tight fibers, trabeculas, here's a drawing. I'll show you a picture here in a minute. That's a strong constitution. People have a strong vital genetic heredity. There's a greater ability to resist illness and disease, higher stamina on all levels, thought and emotion, strong mental and emotional capabilities with a minimal amount of hereditary challenges, a high level of enthusiasm. That's a beautifully strong iris. And it could be any color. I mean, this just happens to be a blue iris. It could be brown. It could be mixed between blue and brown genetics and be called biliary. The weaker constitution, the iris is web-like. And it's a decreased ability to resist illness and disease, a lower stamina on all levels. Thought and emotion, decreased mental and emotional capabilities with an increased amount of hereditary challenges, a tendency towards suppression. Now, before I put this picture up here, I always like people to know that, and to agree with me that I look at every iris as absolutely perfect, because we do not stand in judgment of somebody and what they've got in their eyes, what their journey is, what their lessons are in this life. It's not up to us to judge them at all. We bless them. Look at the difference between the structure of that iris and the one that I showed you previously. Dramatically different. And I like to say that every iris that I see is perfect. Every iris is perfect. And I've never seen a perfect iris. Clinically speaking, I've never seen a perfectly flawless iris. But every iris I see is absolutely perfect just the way it is. Because it's you, and it's you, and it's you. And you're perfect just the way you are. And you're working to get better. Now, if you notice the top of this coconut palm, these fronds on the top are very healthy and vibrant. But look at this dark area right here. Let's take a closer look. Down at the bottom, there's a dark band around the trunk of the palm tree. Look at that. And yet the top of that palm tree was alive and vibrant. The fronds were green and healthy and happy. And look at that trunk. I'd say that that tree trunk is a weak constitution, isn't it? There's something that's been eating at it, definitely. It didn't grow like that. It got some kind of disease, but it was totally healthy on top. Good health is your choice. Evidently, that coconut palm tree was choosing good health. You know, we've heard about weapons of mass destruction and on a global level, and tyrants having these horrific destructive weapons that could wipe out humanity and all of these kinds of things. But I think I've found the real ones. These are the real weapons of mass destruction.
Amen.
Yeah, amen.
Wait. No way.
You know, really. Now, and somebody else says, they'll say,
Mass inflation.
yeah, that too, mass inflation of the body, huh? They'll say, well, you forgot this one, you forgot that brand and that brand. I say, well, I ran out of space to put them all on around the earth. But you get the idea. And they're everywhere. Now, when we look at the eye chart, this is the section colored in with the words taken out. This center here that's kind of a light brown color around inside and around the pupil, inside the collarette, that is the colon as a channel of elimination and detoxification. This orange color here and here is the kidney, bladder, and urethra. The red over on this side, on the right eye, around 7:30 to 8 o'clock in this area, that red is the liver and gallbladder. The edge of the iris is the skin. That would make sense, wouldn't it? I mean, the edge of your body is your skin. The edge of the iris, the reflex, the skin. Just inside the yellow, the two yellow rings here, they represent the lymphatic system of the lymphatic ducts, the lymphatic nodes, and the lymphatic fluid. And the lymph is 3 times bigger than our blood system. And then the bluish color here, all of those parts are reflexed from the respiratory system. The lungs, the nose, the medulla in the brain, the trachea, the bronchioles, the bronchus, the diaphragm, all of those various aspects are located. Look at how much of the iris is consumed or taken up by the channels of elimination and detoxification. If there's anything you could learn from holistic iridology, just in level 1, it would be the channels of elimination and detox, and how you can read them in the eyes, and how you can help people to eliminate, to cleanse. Because as I teach it, I teach how to cleanse physically, and then the thought and emotions that go along with it, to have a happy, healthy colon, and liver and gallbladder, and kidneys and bladder, respiratory system. Let's take a look at just a couple of these channels as an introduction. The outer edge of the iris, as I said, is the skin. And when it's dark, and you can see this in a brown eye, you can see it in a blue eye, or you can see it in a mixed colored eye called biliary, which is a genetic mix of blue and brown. When it's dark on the edge, it's a toxic accumulation in the skin tissues as a channel of elimination. It's a level of darkness there that appears, and it indicates the degree of congestion and hypofunction. Accumulation of toxins in the skin. The skin is a channel of elimination. And the thought and emotion that goes with it, when it's suppressed, it's our ability to feel the environment. The dark color indicates a suppressed feeling, and thoughts like, the world is a harsh place. People hurt me. I'm afraid to trust. And it's a wall of protection. And there's the skin on the edge, all the way around the iris. The reason why there's a little break right here is because these are exits out of the body. There's an iris that shows an underactive skin. Look at how dark that ring is around the edge of the iris. It's so far intruded, it actually goes from what we call zone 7 into zone 6. It's that suppressed. See, every iris is perfect. No judgment. We're using this for teaching purposes. Skin brushing is something that's good to do. Now, the lymphatic system has two locations, zone 6 and zone 3. Zone 3 is along the collarette. It goes around the gastrointestinal tract. And then just inside the skin is lymphatics as well. And when it's congested, there'll be little clouds of white or yellowish white accumulations. They can be segmented or continuous. And when we have that, that's a congestion or stagnation and constriction of the lymphatic glandular tissue systems. And immunity to disease is reduced. Thought and emotion, issues of limitation, when you see them, like, I can't take it. I can't move forward. I can't do it. I don't know how. What's the use? I'm not good enough. It's not possible. All of that. Have you ever done that to yourself? I don't know. I'm not sure. Oh, if only I had more money. Gosh, I wish I had started to do that when I was younger. Now I'm X number of years of age. Why didn't I do this when I was 25 or 30 instead of starting it now at 50-something or whatever? Those are all illusions and issues of limitation. The yellow, see the yellow? The yellow is the ducts, nodes, and fluid. And the purple, these are the tonsils here. The purple there around 2 o'clock, that's the tonsils. These little dots in the small intestine are known as Peyer's patches. Johann Peyer, a Swiss anatomist, had identified these immune system tissue structures in the small intestine. These little ovals underneath the heart reflex is the thymus gland. This little appendage hanging down here off of the cecum in the right eye, that is the appendix. And over here, this larger section in the left eye, between 4 and 5 o'clock, that area that's purple is the spleen. That's all of our immune system. So be careful. If you knew how powerful a negative thought is, you'd never have another one. You'd never have another one. See that these are called tophi. All that white in there, those are tophi. That's lymphatic congestion. Another term for them are called brush field spots. Getting on a miniature trampoline or a rebounder is a great way to circulate lymph. And while you're bouncing, or you're walking, or you're doing anything in the way of exercise and movement, to say, I am, I can, I choose, I will, I create, I have, I love, I enjoy. I am, I can, I choose, I will, I create, I have, I love, I enjoy. And I teach my people that come to me for counseling and guidance, and I like to teach my students this, and we get on a rebounder and you bounce, you go, I am, I can, I choose, I will, I create, I have, I love, I enjoy. I am, I can, I choose, I will, I create, I have, I love, I enjoy. And that goes deep into the subconscious mind and empowers you to transmute issues of limitation. I am, I can, I choose, I will, I create, I have, I love, I enjoy. Very powerful. I love these are dwarf irises. I have a patch of them outside of my office. And one of these flowers, from this tip of the leaf to this tip of this petal over here, the petals of the flower, that is only about maybe 2 1/4 inches. That's all. They're beautiful little flowers that bloom in early April. Now what about this? What does this look like to you? What kind of tree trunk is this? It's a sequoia, one of the big giant redwoods. They live a long time, so why can't we? You know, I hear people passing away at 48 and 56 and 61. Wow, that's terrible. That is so young, so young. These trees live hundreds of years. So let's talk about the large intestine just for a minute, and then we'll move on to another segment of iridology and what holistic iridology can show. It's inside the collarette, as I've mentioned a few times, and its structures of the gastrointestinal tract, which extend from the ileocecal valve at the cecum all the way to the anus. And the collarette tells me something about a personality aspect and how the bowel functions. There it is, colored in. That's the reflex of the colon. And here, that's an exit out of the body. That's why there's a break graphically in these lines down here, close to 7 o'clock, where it's colored in. That's an exit out of the body. It's a channel of elimination. Along with the education, there are charts that explain everything. This particular chart shows the various conditions of the health of a colon, like diverticula, spasms and strictures, ballooned or hypotonic, prolapsus of the transverse colon, prolapsus of the sigmoid colon, colitis, strictures, and so on. And they all have emotional correlations. If you know anybody that has a condition of ill health or a dis-ease in the GI tract, in the colon, like I said before, there's thoughts and emotions that precede it. Always there are thoughts and emotions. And there's a chart here that shows the iris and the condition of what it looks like in the iris, what it looks like in the body with a medical illustration here, anatomical illustration, and then the corresponding thoughts and emotions that go with it. This is a healthy colon. That's a beautiful, symmetrical collarette. It's that ring that's just outside of the pupil. Beautifully symmetrical. That's a very healthy colon. It's a balance of receiving and letting go, an equilibrium of moods. Then here, the collarette drops down. You can see it in the illustration here on the left. And that's a prolapsed transverse colon. You can see it in the iris, the predisposition for it, even before it happens. Weighted down, the thought and emotion, weighted down with mental and emotional stress. There's a barium enema X-ray of a prolapsed transverse colon. Look at that. Isn't that something? That should be up here, folks. This segment that droops and swoops way down here should be up here. %of bowel cancers are found in two areas: the cecum and the sigmoid rectum. 80% of them from poor elimination, because the food stagnates and rots and putrefies and causes irritation on the mucosal tissues and eventually can form a cancer. That piece is 3 feet long, and it came out of a woman that I recommended, after looking at her eyes, that she do a tissue cleansing program to detox her body and to clean out the colon and do all of that. And she said, I don't need it. I said, why? She said, because I'm a vegetarian. Well, that's wonderful. That's really good. And I have had 2 bowel movements a day for the last 10 years. I don't need to clean my colon out. What else can you do for me, Doc? I said, well, that's where you need to start. No, I don't. Okay. I said, do you want to overcome your depression? Yes. Do you want to overcome your mood swings that go along with that? Well, of course I do. Do you want to have a clear mind? Because you're telling me you have cloudy thinking and this lethargy, kind of dullness. Would you like to overcome that? Well, of course that's why I'm here. I want to overcome all of those things. Would you like to have more vitality and energy to work as a nurse in a VA hospital as you do? Yes, that's why I'm here. I said, then you need to clean out your pooper. No, I don't. I said, okay, I can't help you. I can help you to help yourself, but I can't do it for you. So that's my recommendation. I can see it in your eyes. This is what you need to do. And so throughout this, she decided to do it, by the way, because that's her story. But on day 3, she started passing pieces of poison out of her body that long. And like I said, that piece was 3 feet long. One piece. When people say, what is it? I said, it's death. It's death. She's choosing life, and she was eliminating the poisons that she held in her body. And folks, that's somebody that had 2 bowel movements a day for 10 years. So if I get a chance to look in your eyes and read them, and I tell you you're full of it, I can prove it. I can prove it. That's pretty ugly. And that is an adenocarcinoma of the sigmoid colon, where 80% between the cecum and the sigmoid. This tissue down at the bottom of the picture is healthy, and all those nodules in there is cancer. I know it's not good to look at. So let's look at this butterfly instead. So there's another aspect to iridology from a holistic perspective, and that's constitutional iridology. I was showing you channels of elimination. Here, this is constitutional, which comes from the tradition of iridology out of Europe. And they have found that specific colors mean something. Like in the upper left, the blue iris has certain traits. The brown-eyed person has certain traits, the bottom left. In the middle, this is a hematogenic, is in the middle. And at the bottom is the lower left is the biliary iris. And that's a combination of blue and brown genetics. And every one of these features and compositive features in the iris, they have with them corresponding physical characteristics or diseases, hyphenated. And then correspondingly, there's thoughts and emotions that go with all of it. As you know, they come first. Like the blue iris, the lymphatic iris as it's called, and you can actually see the brush field spots or lymphatic tophi out here in zone 6, but not every blue eye has lymphatic tophi. But the lymphatic iris, the thought and emotional predisposition, is emotional pain, forgiveness issues, flexibility, and limited self-perception. In the brown iris, a full brown eye, hematogenic, the predisposition challenges to overcome are anger and resentment, a repression of expression, emotional fluctuations, difficulty receiving from others. Now, these are categorical. It doesn't mean that every brown-eyed person has these issues, but predominantly, these are the issues for brown-eyed people. I myself have brown eyes. Some people's eyes look brown, but when you look closely, they're really not. They're biliary, which means they're a mix, like this. But under natural light, they might look more brown. Now, the common term for an iris like this is called hazel, but it's really biliary. And the biliary iris is very similar to the brown eye. There's difficulty receiving. There's anger and resentment issues. There's grief and sadness issues, which is different. And then a feeling of being vulnerable. I love nature. I love Mother Earth. I like to spend time in nature. And it infills me, and it's very healing. And I like to put some pictures in as we go along through the lectures of some natural scenes. This happens to be the coast of Oregon. There's another aspect, fundamental iris signs. There are 36 fundamental signs here on this chart, and all of them have thought and emotional correlations to them. Everything does. Everything we do, all of our physical attributes, all the glands and organs, all the systems have correlating thought and emotions with it. And what's the greatest question now, test question? What's the greatest healing power of all? Love. Sure is. I mean, we can look at the lymphatic eye, hematogenic, biliary, the albino person, central heterochromias, sectoral heterochromias. There's just so many things, and they all have specific meanings. There's also pigments in the eyes, more specifically, and that the brownish pigments are liver, and then the lighter colors here of pigments that are in the brown rust color is a combination of pancreas and liver, which is going to be digestive distress. The pinkish salmon colors, they're more of the pancreas issues and blood sugar aspects. And then the whites and yellows here at the top of the chart, those are kidney related. So we have got kidney encumbrances and pigments, pancreatic. There's also some that are reddish in color, and that's gastric and gastrine with the stomach. The orangey ones are the pancreas, and the brownish ones are the liver. I think this is fascinating. This person has two different colored eyes. A brown eye and a biliary eye. This patch right here is called a complete sectoral heterochromia, and it's kind of an orangey rust color. That was there at birth. That didn't come on and develop at the age of 3, 5, 6 years. That was there at birth, and it relates to digestion for the most part because of its color. It's going to be pancreas and liver combination. This pigment right here is a brown pigment, a melanin pigment, and it is in the kidney in the right eye of this woman. And the power of holistic iridology in assessing something like this, I would say to this person, I have a hunch that perhaps you have unresolved issues of forgiveness towards primary masculine figures in your life where there's a lot of harbored anger and resentment. And they'll say, how did you know that about me? All I did was give you my name. How did you know that? I said, it's in your eyes. The eyes are the windows of the soul. The eyes don't lie. The eyes don't lie. Sometimes, though, you might come across somebody that's in the river. And you say, have you ever had, no. Are you sure you don't know about it with your, and somebody? No, they're in the river. What am I talking about? You know that river in Egypt? Denial? You know Denial River in Egypt kind of flows through and goes out to the Mediterranean, and that river. You might know somebody who's like that sometimes. They're in the river. They're in Denial River. And some people just don't know. Seriously, they don't know that they don't know. And they have these things going on in them genetically. So the eyes can help us understand these issues, and people can heal them. This was a recent trip I had in the Everglades swamps down in South Florida. That's a great blue heron. Now, the brain reflex of iridology. This is amazing. This is absolutely phenomenal information, because as we talk about how the pigments mean something, the structures mean something of the iris, what I've come up with here in studying all of this from my predecessors, that these brain areas have been adapted from the early work of J. Haskell Kritzer, MD, and Bernard Jensen, DC, ND, PhD. These areas have been expanded upon through my study and observations of several thousand people. They are now interpreted to reflect conscious and subconscious thought and emotional patterns from ancestral genetic memory. The brain reflexes of holistic iridology. This is a contribution, the advancement of understanding the brain in the iris started back at the beginning of the last century in the early 1900s and the late 19th century, the 1890s, 1895, and it started here in the USA. But the first person to study it, it's historically, was actually born in Austria and moved to the Chicago area. That, my friends, is a real human brain. The human brain weighs, the average person weighs just a fraction over 3 pounds. 3 pounds. About 3 pounds, 2 ounces is the average. I'll take their word for it because I really don't want them to weigh my brain. I want it right where it is for as long as it can be there, functioning as efficiently as possible. I'll take their word on it, whoever is going to give me those statistics about how much a human brain weighs when it's alive. Now also, the human brain is about 78% water. 10% of it that flows through the brain is blood at any point in time. And another 10% is cerebral spinal fluid. Do you know that the dolphin, the bottlenose dolphin, that its brain weighs a few ounces more than ours? They're pretty smart creatures, beings. You know, we call them animals and put them in aquariums and train them to jump and do different things. And they're probably going, oh my gosh, those humans, you know. What is that? Those fools? Yeah, I agree. I mean, here we are. Yeah. Oh yeah, we're the only intelligent ones on the earth. Oh boy, that shows you, people have that attitude. It shows you how unintelligent that thinking is, to think we're the only ones. There's a chart to the brain areas and the brain reflexes. I mean, the nature, again, of this lecture is not to go into detail of all of this. This comes in the teachings of holistic iridology through the seminars. But I have an anatomical brain. I'll show you a close-up of this here in just a minute. The anatomical brain, and then the consciousness aspects of the brain reflex in holistic iridology. Now, this is the anatomical brain on the left side. We start at the base with the medulla, then the cerebellum, and then the cerebrum, the cerebral cortex, the cerebrum, has lobes. The occipital lobe, parietal lobe, frontal lobe, and temporal lobes of the higher cortex. Down at the bottom in the eye chart, these three structures here at the bottom, the H is for hypothalamus, the PIT is for pituitary, and the P is for pineal. And there's the left eye in terms of holistic iridology. We start with survival, sexual expression and experiential aspects, experiential perception of a psychological nature, sensory movement, consciousness and vitality at 12 o'clock, and then 5 senses, self-esteem, verbal expression, and creative intellect. There's 9 brain centers in the holistic iridology system, 9 in the left eye and 9 in the right eye, for then a total of 18. And here is how it lays out. Now, again, for the introductory sense of this, I am just going to talk about the left eye and just select a few different topics to go over. But this is how it lays out. The brain stem is survival. This is the medulla. And then experiential and sexual aspects, what we received and didn't receive from our parents growing up, and consciousness at the top. And for those, some people might refer to it as the crown chakra, as an energy center in the top of the skull, and going all the way through to the frontal lobes of creative intellect. And there it is. It's just a reverse. It's a mirror image in the right eye, in the right half of the brain, and how it lays out. Neurons. Our brain is full of neurons connecting and communicating at the speed of light. 100 billion neurons is the latest statistic on the brain. 100 billion neurons communicating at the speed of light with electrochemical reactions. And we need every one of them. Now let's think about this. We're looking at survival here. And I'll give you an instance of what it means. The thought and emotional aspect is gestational and or birth trauma, breathing difficulties, resistance to inspiration from the creative, emotional aspects, concern about survival in emotional relationships, either experiential or from hereditary factors. Birth trauma can be seen in someone's eye. I read the eyes of someone live at a medical convention once. The man came up to me and he was interested in holistic iridology, so I put the light and lens, little handheld, not a camera, a light and lens to his eye, and I asked him, I said, is your mother still alive? He goes, yes. I said, do you have a good rapport? Would you talk to your mother? Do you know? Oh, yeah, sure, I do. Why you ask? I said, because I'd like you to talk to her and ask her about your gestational and birth process. Why do you say that? I said, well, because it seemed like there was some kind of trauma where you went through a life and death struggle. Could you ask your mother if that's so? He goes, oh, I don't have to ask her. I said, well, why? What'd you experience? He said, well, during the 3rd trimester, he said, my mother got extremely toxic. She had toxemia. And at the time, the doctors that were on the case thought that maybe they would have to lift to do a cesarean and lift me and abort the pregnancy, or take me out as a premature baby, and if I survived, I survived, and if I didn't, I wouldn't. But the case was that we both might die because my mother was developing this, or had developed this toxic reaction and so forth. It was life-threatening. Well, obviously he made it, and his mother was still alive, so he was talking to her about it, and he knew the story. He said, you mean to tell me you could see that in my eyes? A birth trauma, a life and death situation? When I was in utero? I said, well, I just did, didn't I? Now, I didn't know that it was the 3rd trimester and it was toxemia, but I know that on a soul level, you experienced a life and death situation. That's amazing. He said, you know what, Dr. Pesek, I didn't tell you this before I walked up to your booth here. He said, but I'm an ophthalmologist. I'm a board-certified ophthalmologist. He said, I look at eyes all day long. And what you just told me is absolutely astounding. Well, he became a student. Yeah, he sure did. Now we'll look at one more. We'll look at experiential and psych perception. From a psychological, that's what I mean. Seeing, tasting, smelling. It's not that perception. It's my psychological perception of something, or yours. And it has to do like this. Thought and emotions, one's perception and experience of what was or was not received from the environment, from mother, or from primary feminine figures while growing up. When there's a mark in the iris, and it is amazingly accurate. Now, there are different features in the eyes to be able to read this, and I could teach you how to do that. Normal is a balance. I'll show you what the iris looks like. Hypo is underactive, and that's a suppression. Hyper feature in the iris is compulsion. And then the combination of hypo-hyper is a fluctuation between suppression and compulsion. Suppression is, I don't know how, I can't, I'm not going to, no way, you're not going to make me do it, or I can't get it, I don't understand, it's not enough. And the compulsion, the hyper part, is I must, I have to, I've got to. I've got to get this. I must have this. I have to have more. I want more of it. I'm not getting enough of it. So now, how they look in the iris is that this thickened white band, do you see that up here in the brain area around 1 o'clock? Right up in there where all the trabeculars are kind of bonded together? Right there? Okay, that is a hyper condition. The white is hyper. And the darker areas on either side of it, this little lacuna here, I'll go around it with the pointer, right to the right of it, that is a hypo area. So when I'm looking at this, this actually would be, this is the left eye, I think, let me look and see. Yep, it's a left eye. And so this would be an experiential psychological perception. And it's in the left eye, so it's feminine. So it's from the mother's side. It's the feminine side. So I would ask them, I've got a hunch, did you get all that you wanted and needed experientially from a primary feminine figure while you were growing up? And I'll just leave it out there like that. I don't say who, and they go, you mean my mother? My mother? I said, well, I didn't say. If that's what bubbled up to the surface is your mother, well then great. Then that's who, if that's what, maybe you answered the question. So what is it with mom? And I'll have a story with, or let's say with father as an example, that dad was never around. Dad was always working somewhere, and the child never got any nurturing from the father. And it's, I've got to receive, I must receive, I must receive, I have to receive. I'm not getting it, the hypo part. I'm not getting it, it isn't happening. I don't know if you can see this from here, not really with the screen, but there's a brown spot right up there, I think. And then over here, there is, just a little easier to see, there's more hyper and hypos. The dark is hypo and the whitish is hyper. There are ways to read that in a brown eye. Because under the brown eye is blue for everybody. We all have blue eyes here. Every one of us has blue eyes underneath the brown. Every one of us. It's across the board, across the planet, all of us. It's a brown pigment that gets deposited genetically. So when your perceptions are unobstructed, you know, when you're really clear and you overcome issues of limitation, I don't know, I'm not sure, I don't know how, I can't, I'm angry, I'm depressed, all those negative things. When we get those out of the way, then our perceptions are unobstructed. They're clear. You will experience your life as it truly is, filled with infinite possibilities. And that's the power of holistic iridology, is to help people understand these impediments these blockages, these illusions, which keep us from being connected or corroding our connection to the divine. Look at this spiral galaxy out in the universe. Infinite universe. Infinite possibilities. In closing, true health, real health is a balance of everything that we've been talking about, that I've been sharing with you. Spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical. And all healing begins on the spiritual level first, then into our thoughts, then into our emotions, and then finally into the physical body. That's real healing on a spiritual level. How do we heal without being divinely connected? Again, this is not about religion. It's about the truth of where we come from, the divine creative source of all. Many religions have many names for our Creator, but we all come from the same source, all of us. I love this. This is Balance Rock. This is in Utah. And this rock, this structure, is several hundred feet in height. And people have calculated how many tons this weighs and how it's balanced just right there. And it's a monument to erosion, to the forces of nature. Balance, balance, balance. Diseases are not caught. They are created by breaking down the natural defenses through the ways we eat, drink, feel, think, live, love, laugh. It's all of it. That's how health is eroded. It's faulty thinking, faulty feeling. And then on the physical level, what we put into our temple, our body. Now, if you knew of a toxic food, think about this. If you knew of a toxic food, would you eat it? If you knew it was toxic for you? What a silly question. You say, of course not. But if you knew how toxic a negative thought was, would you think it? We do this to ourselves day after day, hour by hour. I'm here with you in this process of growing up and learning to be healthy. It's a challenge every day. But thinking and feeling negative thoughts is just as and more destructive to our health than eating something toxic. And yet, that is an emotional diet, a thought diet. It's what we have and what we circulate through our bodies. It doesn't have to go through our mouth. It doesn't have to be something we breathed in through our lungs. It's from within. We talk about toxic environments. Oh, the earth is polluted and we need to clean up the air and the water and the soil. And we have all these microwave transmissions. That's all true. And we do need to be mindful of Mother Earth and helping to create and reclaim a healthy environment. Of what we've done over the last 100+ years to our environment. But what about your internal environment? With what you think and what you feel. Holistic Iridology can help you get to those root causes. Because diseases start by breaking down through the ways we eat, drink, feel, think, live, love, laugh. It's all of that. It's not just food and water. Because that you might put in 2 or 3 times a day maybe, but your thoughts and your feelings are 24/7. And holistic iridology will help you, and will help you to, I can teach you how to do this so that you in turn can help others to transform their lives. In transforming a life, this is a chrysalis, this little thing hanging here, and that was a creepy, crawly little caterpillar. This one emerged, and the caterpillar spins this cocoon, this chrysalis, and it turns itself into liquid and reforms into a butterfly. What a phenomenal metamorphosis. And there it is. That's the butterfly that emerged from this. It opened it up. It cracked the little chrysalis, the cocoon, and it came out, and there it is. And that was a caterpillar. So if you feel like sometimes in your life that you're like a caterpillar, you can become a butterfly. What you've been learning, what I've been sharing with you is a new iridology. A new iridology for a whole new generation. It's well beyond the physical, but it includes the physical. You could become a student of the International Institute of Iridology. You can earn a diploma. You could become a diplomate of holistic iridology. This is the highest credential available in the science and practice of iridology, and the most respected. Holistic iridology. And above all, my friends, thank you for being here. And I want to close with, remember that good health is your choice. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Any questions? Then excellent. So put all your notes underneath the table. I'm going to pass out a test. If no one has any questions, I'm going to test you all now on what I just said. Okay? Here's number one. You can answer this. You finish the sentence. Remember, good health is your choice. Okay. True healing starts where first? Spiritual, then mental, emotional, and physical. True or false? Holistic iridology is used for diagnosis of illness and diseases. True or false? False. That's right. We use it for assessment of conditions and levels of health. All right? Now, is every iris perfect, or are some of them flawed? Every iris is perfect. That's right. And are you a victim of your genetics? True or false? I am a victim of my genetics. True or false? False. You have the ability to change. You're not subject to the genetics of your parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, and you have no power. That is absolutely an illusion that's false. You have the ability to choose wellness and to seek it out. A holistic model, the holistic paradigm of healing, contains what four main components? Holistic health has four main components. What are they? True healing begins where, what first? Okay, that's the clue. So holistic health has four components. What are they? Spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical. That's the true nature of how it all works. True or false? Thoughts come before feelings. Yeah, we have to think it first. It's judgment. If you have no judgment, then the emotions are not like, oh, this is bad, this makes me sad, this makes me mad. It's a thought first, and then there's a feeling. And then from the feelings, with enough of them, it affects what? The feelings affect the physical. So treating somebody with physical symptoms is wonderful. Help them, guide them, counsel them, do anything to help them. But helping them further is helping them understand they're aberrant or faulty thought and emotional processes that come first. That's really the true nature of helping somebody heal. But that's not to ignore the physical. When I was doing this work and I created my PhD and that doctoral dissertation on thought and emotional aspects to the eyes, and Dr. Jensen was, like I said, the doctoral chairman of my committee on this, and he said, David, you have done magnificent work with all of this. He said, but promise me one thing. I said, what's that, Dr. Jensen? He said, always teach them the physical as well. And I said, I have to. It's necessary. In learning iridology and learning the ways to do it, you've got to teach the physical and then build on that with the emotional and the thought and the spiritual aspects as seen in the eyes. And again, I emphasize this as I've referenced the divine creative source of all, that it's not about religion. It's about the spiritual essence of who you are. And there's no machines that analyze this, the essence of who you are. But your eyes are the windows of your soul.